Hi everyone, welcome to SportsKhabri with me, Aladi and Rishi. Guys, it's time to start discussing that phase of Indian T20 cricket. Following the departure of Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma, of course, there's still a lot of buzz around the T20 World Cup with the team recently meeting the Prime Minister of the country as well. But yeah, we're moving on from Kohli and Rohit Sharma and Ravindra Jadeja. But the question is, who is going to replace them? They're big shoes. Let's start off with Kohli and Rohit because top of the order, two important batters. They showed their class and they proved their worth as well to the Indian team during particular stages of this tournament as well. Rishi, dude, who is there? Is there anybody in mind that you think will straight away come in and fill in one of those places at least?
I mean, you can throw in a couple of names, like two, three names, even if they don't, even if they're not sure shot replacements, but they will stick around with the setup more often than not. They will feature. I think you can say someone like Shubman Gill, Yashasvi Jaiswal. Jaiswal is already part of the World Cup squad, so people
Yeah.
like Shubman Gill, like you can say Rituraj Gaikwad, these guys, they're not just young players, they're also their respective IPL franchise captains. And Gill is already also named as the Zimbabwe tour captain, if I'm not wrong. So I'm sure the BCCI, the coaching staff and the selection committee will have all this in mind. They wouldn't have just picked a squad for the sake of it. I'm sure these guys would have also informed BCCI whatever is going on in the background. I'm sure they would have been aware much before it became a public statement that they are retiring. So at least for the T20 side, these can like these the sad part is all these three players were vital for all three formats, not just T20 or one person for the red ball cricket.
Hmm.
Like all three were not just there, they were key factors. So for me, the bigger concern is who's going to be their replacement when it comes to tests, because these
Yeah.
three are huge players and they're not easily replaceable. For T20,
True.
you can still have players who can do a job like on a given day, but in a test, that it's not like that. You need certain consistency, you need certain class. So that is a
Hmm.
bigger.
No, let's stick to T20 cricket here because we know that they're not going to be there for T20 internationals going forward.
Hmm.
I think, like for me, I don't see any convincing names as such in the crop of players that we have today to say that, oh yeah, this guy is going to come in, like
So
he's
you
definitely
don't
going to.
think someone like Rutraj Gaikwad will have a
No,
strong
I'm not too
game?
sure about him, bro. Like I'm genuinely not too sure. I'm not sure about anyone. I think,
Hmm.
however, that being said, I think the only thing that I can say for now is that the fact that Yashasvi Jaiswal made it to this tour, I think suggests to me that BCCI are going to have a strong look at him
Hmm.
for one of those opening slots. He would not be in the squad if I think they didn't consider him of a very high stature. If Ruturaj Gaikwad was the guy, I think they would have had him as that sort of other opening choice. Now, I don't know if it's a lefty righty thing, that's why they've gone with Yashasvi, or whether they just value Yashasvi's quality more. But at least the fact that he's made it to the squad gives me an indication that maybe, okay, this guy is somebody they're looking at least to replace one of Virat and Kohli. Sorry, Virat or Rohit. Are there any names that you're sure that can come in and do the job?
Oh, dude. I mean, firstly, losing Rohit, Virat, I think anyone coming in needs to earn their spot. It's not easy to fill in, such two big stature of players, especially Rohit and Virat. These two guys have been there for around 10 years, as 10, 12 years, especially in T20. Virat, Rohit, both huge players for India, especially in the T20 format. And looking forward, in terms of who can fill, looking at all these players you guys mentioned, Shubman Gill, Jaiswal, Ruturaj Gaikwad, maybe Ishan Kishan is a stretch, but he can also be there because of an opener. But apart from them, no one else has been established or played for India previously. So apart from these 4 or 5 players, I don't think there's anyone else, at least for the short term, who can come in. But again, I've not been impressed with, at least, let's just take Gill, who's been playing for India for the past 2 years regularly. He's not impressed me a lot in the T20 format. Maybe he has scope to grow. He was dropped for for the T20 World Cup, Jaiswal was picked in. But you talk about Jaiswal, he himself has not been in great form also. And for India, he has not been playing that well in the T20 format also, in my opinion. So it's going to be very tough in terms of who can just come in and replace. If you're talking about senior figure, I still think Gaikwad has the most experience overall. He's the oldest amongst all these guys also. He's captaining, CSK. He's won the Orange Cap before. I still think he's also delivered consistently in the IPL at least. And when you talk about that, I think Gaikwad has a lot of experience. But then I talk about Gaikwad, I don't think he has that international experience which Gill and maybe Jaiswal has to an extent. So it's going to be very weird who can come in. I still think maybe even KL Rahul might be integrated back to the squad also. You never know if he starts again performing a bit better in your IPL, at least for the short term. I always feel like KL Rahul, because previously he didn't have a spot in this team. You taken KL Rahul, we know he's an opener, and this time they chose Rohit and Virat to open, and suddenly you take them both out. You don't have two openers, so you need fresh openers. And I still feel like KL Rahul can do a job there, at least experience wise, and he's just also backed himself for a long time in terms of international exposure. He'll also end up becoming the senior figure in batting, or batting in the batting, at least batting order. And I think it depends on how BCCI look at it, right? Firstly, I do believe the coach is going to play a huge role, and the next captain of India will also play a huge role. But if you ask me personally, it's very difficult for me, because personally, if you look at all these players, even though they're young, Jaiswal's young, Gill is young, uh, you can say maybe Gaikwad has experience, KL has been playing for a long time. All these guys don't convince me enough. And for me, it's more like, again, you take back to the World Cup. If the India's in a situation where they're really back, where India lost the wickets, they need runs. Do you think any of these players can come and give that same performance, the same
Yeah.
performance? I think that's the real question.
Yeah, bro, fair enough. And I think, dude, even if you look at these guys, no, Rishi, bro, 27, Rutraj, Bishopman's 24 years old, Yashasvi is 22 years old. Dude, they've all played the same number of like T20s, like it's around 15, 16 T20s. That's it. Like they haven't played a lot of international cricket apart from Shubman Gill, who's played with the Test team and the ODI team. Their limited exposure. Dude, my worry is Virat and Rohit, when they were 22, 23, Rohit had already won the T20 World Cup, had already played major series abroad. Same with Virat. Like, I think when by the time he was already 24, 25 years old, he was an established cricketer who had already won
He's a World Cup winner as
Men's
well.
World Cup. Yeah, he's a World Cup winner already. So, dude, that's what, in terms of pedigree, I don't see like these guys matching up to Virat and Rohit. That's why I'm a little like, I don't know who is going to really come and take that spot. If personally you ask me, I would actually say my safest bet would be Shubman Gill, simply because of the international exposure he's already had. Yeah, there are question marks about his T20 batting, and he's played the least amount of games also amongst the three, amongst Utraj, Yashasvi, and himself. But I think there's some weirdly, like, just the fact that he's played so much international cricket. Also, he's led the Gujarat Titans. I think there's something there for me to say, okay, at least Shubman Gill should be fine. He could be the Virat Kohli sort of player, that role where you're not expected to be extremely explosive, but can sort of bat through the innings kind of player in this format. Um, but yeah, who's leading the race amongst these three for you?
See, it's not easy gonna coming in to replace two of the greatest batsmen like the sport has ever seen. Like whoever is coming in, unless they're also having coming with the same level of pedigree, the same level of achievements, even for them the expectations are going to be huge. Like you see, if someone has already been with the setup for a while, he's like 21, 22, he's already played a few games, then he's gonna be called the next Virat Kohli, the next Rohit Sharma. That
Yeah.
kind of pressure is something else entirely. And now it's that, okay, who is going to step up to this role? And every game that he plays, he's going to be compared to them. Like, oh, if only we had Virat. Oh, if only there was a time when these guys would anchor the innings. That is an entirely different level of stress and pressure that you're going to have to cope up with.
Yeah.
So I just like see, no matter who plays, that difficulty is going to be there, and I feel it's a little bit unfair that it's inevitable that in the back of our minds, we're going to feel that, okay, things used to be a bit different for us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you said Gill, it's very fair that he has
I'll give you the
played.
strike rates also. I'll give you the
Mhm,
strike rates. Jaiswal
mhm,
has the highest strike rate amongst the three for India.
mhm.
T20I is only 160. The other two are in the 140s. Gill has the second best strike rate. Rutraj has the third best, which is again I think presumably like fine because that's their style of batting. But yeah, continue.
See, at least going forward with what the BCCI has been thinking, like keeping Jaiswal in the squad for the World Cup, like you can to some degree say with some level of safety that he is going to be one of the openers. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
we're pretty much talking about the other opening batsmen.
yeah.
So see, Gill has the international exposure. He has played a lot of games. He has a lot of games under his belt. He has captained his side. He's played. He's been with the setup for all three formats, and like that. Those are his credits in the bank. But I personally, I would feel someone like Gaikwad who, when he bats, like he may not be that proven chaser that he can hunt down the totals with that sure shot steal mentality, but I feel he is someone who's a little bit more tenacious, who has that maturity, who has that presence of mind about him. Like he seemed comfortable having the captaincy also. He Although Chennai had a little bit of a mixed season, you could say that that's always going to happen when you change captaincy from someone like MSD and you're giving it to a young captain. So,
Yeah.
and I feel he handled that situation a lot better than Gill, who pretty much had a poor season from a captaincy perspective. So
Hmm.
I feel, keeping that also in mind, you have to realize that these two were also part of strong leadership group. They're like the veterans of the leadership group as well. So
Hmm.
you can say that of course there will be other slightly more experienced players, but having this will definitely help, or it's definitely not gonna hurt them. So I feel
Where does
so.
KL stand, bro? Is KL
Huh?
in this conversation? Is KL Rahul in this conversation?
Oh, no, that ship has sailed, man. Come on.
Brother.
Uh,
Okay.
Come on.
Interesting. Interesting. Adi, who's I think let's because again like we've sort of deduced it. I think the BCCI are really looking at Yashasvi. Also, I think because he gives you that left hand option. Let's say the other right hand opening slot is open for the others. KL Rahul, Ruturaj Gaikwad, Shubman Gill. Is there anybody else you're seeing who can make that spot, or between the three, who's leading the race for you?
It's gonna be tough. That's my point. I feel like, dude, if you're playing in India, I feel like any of these openers are gonna do well. I have no issues if these guys are playing in India, if they're playing a home tournament, if they're playing a home series in T20. I really don't think. I feel like all these three, four players are very close in terms of quality, in terms of performance. I can give you a guarantee that any of these guys can perform well on their day. But I'm
Yeah.
thinking more of long term, more of international exposure. And
Mm-hmm.
imagine you're playing a series in the Australias, in England, or obviously in future World Cups will happen in different continents, right? So I think that's where it different conditions matter. And if I'm going to think about it long term, I still do believe Jaiswal and Gill, at least from what the BCCI are looking at, whatever their plan is. I think these two will be a mainstay in all three formats, in terms of
Okay.
ODI, in terms of Test, and in terms of T20. And if these guys are there playing all three formats, I still think these guys will be the best players to go and perform for India. Obviously, they're very young. So one thing, I don't remember the last time you had such young openers in the past 10 years for a top three, top four nation, right? Because you go back to previous eras, we had Rohit Sharma, Dhawan playing continuously as an opener.
Yeah. Yeah.
You look at Australia, they had Warner, Finch playing for them. You go to England, you had their own Butler, etc. playing. So there's a lot of players who've been playing there for a long time, and then suddenly, as I said, it's mostly going to happen for all countries, but for India, especially right now, it's a huge step because these guys are very young, but they've also had a lot of games played under the IPL. They played against top ballers, against the best T20 players in the world, to be honest. So my only issue is, can these guys play outside India? Because that's one thing where I look at it. I still think Gill and Jaiswal are the only two players who I believe can play outside India the best. amongst the three, amongst the four. Even the thing with KL Rahul, I think he's thereabouts, but I don't think if you're looking for the future, I still think Gill and Jaiswal have that explosiveness which KL Rahul lacks for sure. So for me personally, I would just put KL Rahul at least, as I said before, maybe KL Rahul in terms of playing in India or maybe in terms of giving that stability at least for some time. If Gill and Jaiswal doesn't perform, because you have to be patient with these guys. If you really trust them, fair enough. Because I'm sure these guys are going to fail in terms of like not score runs a lot, at least in the beginning, or maybe not. But if they do go in a bad run of form, I think the Indian team, the Indian fans, the Indian coaching staff, BCCI, all have to give patience and be patient with these guys because again you're filling the boots of Rohit Sharma and Virat, so you're always going to be compared, to those guys. And if you're going to compare to them, it's going to be very unfair because maybe India won't win a World Cup next year, maybe something else happens. So we have to be patient with them for sure. But again, in terms of what can happen, also depends on who the Indian coach is and who the next Indian captain is.
Yeah, fair enough. Rishi, I left out Ravindra Jadeja for the end because it seems pretty straightforward. Akshar Patel's done so well in this tournament, and I think DK was doing a segment for Crickbuzz, and he said he can bowl, he can bat, he can field.
Yeah.
He's basically Ravindra Jadeja part 2. So yeah, dude, it's pretty straightforward, right? I mean, we played 3 spinners this time out, but more often than not, you'd play Akshar and then probably Kuldeep looks like that sorted
Yeah.
second spin. So is that straightforward for you, or is there somebody else we can consider for Ravindra Jadeja?
I mean, that's the thing. There's nobody else who's that convincing. Who's like off the top of your mind? Who can you think of as the next best all rounder who will play for the England setup? I mean,
But
Indian
I'm
setup.
actually very happy with Akshar Patel. Like,
Yeah,
I think I'm
exactly.
very happy.
He went in as, like, you can safely say he went in as one of the understudies for Jadeja, going into this tournament, because there is no way that Jadeja would ever get dropped. It was a matter of who's going to play. Like, one of the pacers will have to sit out and he's going to play. Like, and the fact that he probably after Bumrah and you can say he had like probably the best tournament. Maybe Bumrah, Hardik Pandya, and then Akshar Patel had the best tournament from a team perspective, and that that couldn't come at a better time for him as well. The fact that Jadeja is leaving and he bowls left arm orthodox, he bats left, and the thing is he can come from anywhere from 2 down to 6 down, 7 down. That also is like, see, I don't know. I think it is Dinesh Karthik who called him the Swiss knife, and at that point I'm like, dude,
Dinesh Karthik who called
you're
him
right. Like he's so versatile. Like you can
That's true.
just fit him in anywhere, and that's just so convenient. But that's the thing, and it's all coming right for him at the right time. I can't think of another all rounder who's doing so well, because the next all rounder I can think of is someone like Nitish Reddy, who's just had one good IPL, who's just coming. So he can feature sometime in the long run, but I can't think of anybody else as well. So it's all coming well for Akshar Patel at the right time.
Yeah, I think this is that one position that I'm very confident across formats. Even when Jadeja says, "Okay, thank you very much, Test cricket. Next 5 years, you don't have to think about it. Akshar Patel is good.
Exactly.
He can bowl in Indian conditions, very similar abroad. Like he does the same stuff, keeps it simple. So yeah, I think that we're sorted. But yeah, guys, let us know who you think should be filling those opening slots, because I think that's where the conversation lies. Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, both done from T20 with T20 internationals. There's so many around the periphery. Shubman Gill, Yashasvi Jaiswal, KL Rahul's there, Rutraj Gaikwad, maybe somebody else that you guys can think of. So yeah, let us know who you think can fill those shoes. Like and share the video, subscribe to SportsKhabri, and we'll see you soon. Bye.